Okay, welcome to the third video. This one is entitled, "In Truth and Righteousness Will I Cause to Sweep the Earth as with a Flood," um, which most of you will probably recognize as coming from Moses chapter 7. But as a lead in to this, what we're going to do first is just because this video ties in with the previous two videos, we're going to go back and just do a quick review of some of the things that we've talked about in section 88 of the Doctrine and Covenants. These verses right here are absolutely the most comprehensive in all Scripture so far as I'm aware of showing what Ezra Benson said about the second coming, that it would be three events and putting them in order. And this one has the other really added benefit of showing how the half-hour silence fits relative to these three appearances. So here in verse 87, remember that we were showing that that is equivalent to Revelation 6, verse 12 and 13, about the sun being darkened, the moon turning to blood, great earthquake, and so forth and so on. And in that previous video, we showed you how these scriptures right here in section 88 are the equivalent of Revelation 6, 7 through 17. So after after this great earthquake, we have the testimony of the voice of thunderings, the voice of lightnings, the voice of tempests, the voice of waves heaving themselves beyond their bounds, and all things shall be in commotion. So things are really heating up. And then up here we have, "And angels shall fly through the midst of heaven, crying with a loud voice, sounding the trump of God, saying, prepare ye, O inhabitants of the earth, for the judgment of our God is come. Behold, and lo, the bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him." Of course, this is the fulfillment of the parable of the 10 virgins. Christ is the groom, and members of the church are the bride. And then because he's coming to Missouri, we have to go out to meet him. And then 93 here, "And immediately there shall appear a great sign in heaven, and all people shall see it together." That basically ties in with JST Matthew, verse 36. And so this really represents the Lord's first appearance to the saints. And then the next thing, other than this declaration that the wicked have been destroyed, the next thing that you see in this sequence, verse 95, "And there shall be silence in heaven for the space of half an hour," which, when you think about it, gives you the sequence of that, the half-hour silence, and therefore the opening of the seventh seal happening after this. Okay? And then if you want to know, what's about the Lord's second appearance, then you have to go in and look at what is in the seventh seal. And all you have to do is go to Revelation 8 and start reading, and read on through chapter 11, and you have the build up to the Battle of Armageddon and everything that's going to happen when Christ comes to the Jews. And then here you see immediately after the half-hour silence, The curtain of heaven is unfolded as a scroll is unfolded after it is rolled up, and the face of the Lord shall be unveiled. So there you have it. That's the third appearance. You have all three of those appearances, um, represented here in these few verses, and they are all given to you relative to the half hour of silence. One is before, the second one will be during the half hour silence when Christ appears to the Jews, and the third appearance is after or at the end of the half hour of silence. So now we're going to go to Moses chapter 7, where we will be, talking about the Lord's first appearance, represented here in this timeline, right there in verse 93. So here we are at Moses chapter 7. He says, "In righteousness will I send out of heaven." Okay? And then, "And righteousness and truth will I cause to sweep the earth with a flood, to gather out mine elect from the four quarters of the earth." So what's that sweeping going to be like? How he's going to, cause to sweep forth with a flood, and it's going to gather out his elect. That would be the members of the church, right? From the four quarters of the earth. And note that it is unto a place which I shall prepare. It's going to prepare something. And the elect is going to be gathered out from the four quarters of the earth. It's a holy city. They will be looking forth to the time of my coming. President Nelson says the time of his coming is when he comes to the Jews. And so this apparently precedes that. Sounds a lot like the Lord's first appearance, doesn't it? He also calls this my tabernacle, Zion, a New Jerusalem. Why a New Jerusalem? Why not the New Jerusalem? And he goes on to say to Enoch, "Then shalt thou and thy city meet them there, and we will receive them unto our bosom, and they shall see us, and we will fall upon their necks, and they shall fall upon our necks, and we will kiss each other." And so Enoch's going to be there with all his people. The Lord is going to be there. So wonder, what is this all about? Here in Revelation 21, I think what we have is another version of this over here. Revelation 21, "And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away." Okay, so let's do, I've highlighted this to make this easy to compare. So we have holy city here, holy city here. This is prepared. This one is prepared. This is a New Jerusalem, but it's a New Jerusalem that comes down from God out of heaven. This is a New Jerusalem. So there must be more than one, which there obviously is. If one comes down from out of heaven, we know that we're also going to build a New Jerusalem, right? So obviously there are two New Jerusalems. And he says, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. Okay, that's what he tells Enoch here. Then shall thy city meet them there, and we will receive them into our bosom. Okay, so, and this is all prepared ahead of time. Now, here down in DNC 84, this is also talking about the New Jerusalem, but this is obviously the one that the saints will build. Verily, this is the word of the Lord, that the city New Jerusalem shall be built by the gathering of the saints. By the gathering. Not a place prepared where the elect will be gathered to, but by the gathering. So this gathering precedes this building. Does that make sense? It should make sense to you. We have a confirmation here in 3rd Nephi 21:3 confirms what we just said in DNC 88:4. So, as many of the house of Israel as shall come, or as many as shall gather, will assist in the building in the earthly New Jerusalem. They must first gather, and then they can build. Okay, so here we are in Mark chapter 13. But in those days, after the tribulation, that would be after the abomination of desolation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and glory. And then shall he send his angels, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds. Okay? See the similarity here? Gather together his elect from the four winds. Gather mine elect from the four quarters of the earth. And so, as we read here, and truth and righteousness will I cause to sweep the earth with a flood. Who is that? It's the angels. He will send angels to gather out the elect at that time to a place which he has prepared, a New Jerusalem. In just Luke 17, we have another version of this. This was as the Lord was talking to his disciples on the Mount of Olives. And they answered and said unto him, Where, Lord, shall they be taken? And he said unto them, Whithersoever the body is gathered, or in other words, whithersoever the saints are gathered, thither will the eagles be gathered together, or thither will the remainder be gathered together. Kind of confusing language a bit here, but the saints are going to trek back to Jackson County, and that's where they're going to be gathered. Okay. Then he spake, signifying the gathering of his saints, and of angels descending and gathering the remainder unto them. Okay, this fulfills that parable, one shall be in the bed, the other from the grinding, the other from the field, whithersoever he listeth. And so this is just another confirmation, that he's going to gather them, and that angels are going to descend and gather the saints at that time. At least the saints that are scattered in the four quarters of the earth. Okay, so here we are, with a statement by Joseph Smith. Up here he quotes Moses 7:62. And then he says, Now I understand by this quotation that God clearly manifests to Enoch the redemption which he prepared by offering the Messiah as the lamb slain from before the foundation of the world. And by virtue of the same, the glorious resurrection of the Savior, and the resurrection of all the human family. Even a resurrection of their corporal bodies is brought to pass, and also righteousness and truth are to sweep the earth as with a flood. And now I ask, how righteousness and truth are going to sweep the earth as with a flood? I will answer, men and angels are to be co-workers in bringing to pass this great work. And Zion is to be prepared, even a New Jerusalem, for the elect that are to be gathered from the four quarters of the earth, and to establish an holy city, for the tabernacle of the Lord shall be with them. Okay? And then he gives us a huge clue as to how he sees this relative to the other passage that we've been talking about, which is Revelations 21. He quotes, "And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God." So he says of Enoch, he says, now Enoch was in good company on this subject. In other words, he has another who agrees with this, and then he points us to John and Revelation 21. Okay, so here we are back to our two passages, which are the equivalent of each other, which means that that's probably worth spending some time reading and pondering and contemplating. So here's the conclusions, our conclusions for this video. 1, Moses 7:62-63 equals Revelation 21, 2 through 4. They make up the Lord's first appearance. 2, there are two New Jerusalems. The first one is prepared in advance and descends from heaven. When the saints see the Lord coming, that is when the angels will gather the elect from the four quarters of the earth. Subsequent to this gathering, the earthly New Jerusalem shall be built by the gathering of the saints, or by as many of the house of Israel as shall come. So the first phase of the gathering is accomplished by angels, and the second phase of the gathering is assisted by as many of the house of Israel as shall come. And I'm going to say that angels are going to participate in this second phase as well. So who's going to be there? From D&C 84, the Lord hath gathered all things in one. The Lord hath brought down Zion from above. The Lord hath brought up Zion from beneath. So at this time, all things are going to be gathered together in one. That will include everyone from Adam down to who were with Christ in his resurrection, so resurrected. The inhabitants of the city of Enoch, translated beings. Members of the church who have sufficient oil in their lamps, mortals. The righteous who have died since Christ's resurrection, more resurrected. The 10 tribes, and I believe they'll arrive shortly after the others arrive, so more mortals. And the great gathering of the house of Israel, which must be accomplished before the Lord will appear to the Jews. So men and angels will work on that gathering, and it will be accomplished according to President Nelson before he will appear to the Jews. And so I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and that you've found it informational and enlightening. Thank you for listening.